Well, let's move on now to South Africa, where a commission of inquiry into corruption allegations has resumed sittings in Johannesburg after nearly a month-long recess. Now, former Public Enterprises Minister Barbara Hogan took the stand today, and she implicated several high-ranking government ministers and officials. During her testimony, Hogan explained that ministers were responsible for board and management appointments in their portfolios and state-owned entities.
He then said that no appointment to Transnet must be made until the disciplinary case against Mr. Gama is concluded. I was concerned about that, and I said I would provide him with further evidence. Remember, I was only 1 month into that job, but I was already feeling that the president was exceeding his authority here. And I was truly shocked. When you explain to the president that a person is facing misconduct charges, you expect a certain response that says, oh, well, if that is the case, let us look at the preferred candidate that the board is recommending. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to encumber Transnet, that is so important, with a candidate who's going to be involved in controversy. And the fact that the president was absolutely insistent, Gama, you will be appointed.
Well, let's discuss today's testimony further with Angelo Coppola. He now joins us in Johannesburg. Angelo, welcome to the show. Now, as we heard there, Angelo, some pretty damning testimony coming from former Public Enterprises Minister Barbara Hogan. What were some of the most damaging pieces of information for former President Zuma that came out of her testimony today?
Well, look, Hogan and the evidence leader Mokoena spent the better part of this morning explaining the roles and responsibilities of those government ministers in the departments that they looked after, as well as the roles and responsibilities of the president. And it soon became clear why. The ex-president directly interfered in that appointment of that new CEO at Transnet. Hogan testified to at least 2 separate meetings where Zuma gave her a direct instruction to appoint Gama as the new CEO once his disciplinary had been completed. He also interfered in the appointment of directors and a new board which Hogan was trying to sort of put in place near the end of her term. Hogan says that Zuma also pulled 2 cabinet memos which were related to those appointments. Then there was the more nuanced manner that Zuma dealt with Hogan. He would, for instance, have meetings at his home with no aides present. And in several instances, those meetings were actually arranged by Zuma's housekeeper. That's according to Hogan. The ex-minister also paints a picture of a president running the country, flouting the constitution, and specifically when it comes to those SOEs. And this was the first time that an ex-cabinet minister has implicated the ex-president for breaching his roles and responsibilities and operating outside of the constitution.
Now, of course, Angelo, former finance minister and current public enterprises minister Pravin Gordhan, he'll be testifying this Thursday. And as you remember, some of his statement did leak, in which he implicated Zuma in the looting of state-owned enterprises. He's also facing a lot of complaints against him regarding some violations of the Executive Ethics Code, according to the opposition party EFF. Some feel that he is facing a lot of fight back. It's being politicized. What are your thoughts on that, Angelo?
Well, look, if you believe what Gordhan is saying, he's suggesting that he's the subject of a concerted effort to discredit him. In fact, we heard last week also that the public protector had subpoenaed him to talk to her on Wednesday about that disputed retirement package that he'd awarded to one of his colleagues. There's been a media release war between Gordhan and the public protector since the first round went out, with no sign of anyone easing off there. Then there's that call from the EFF to have Gordhan investigated separately for some meetings that he apparently had with some of the Gupta brothers during his tenure as finance minister. Interestingly, though, Gordhan was actually at the Zondo Commission today. He says he was there to support Barbara Hogan. He left at lunchtime, but not before greeting several members from the Kathrada Foundation who were there to support Barbara Hogan at the Commission. So most of the commentators are now waiting for what Gordhan has to say officially. This after, of course, that whole of his testimony was leaked. You're also aware, though, that Hogan's testimony was also leaked, but there wasn't such a big hullabaloo made of it at that point. There was a big noise made about Gordon's leakage, but it's the angle of the questioning from the evidence leader that no one is sure about. Either way, we're waiting with bated breath to see who Gordon will throw under the bus on Thursday.
Well, we're certainly waiting as well. Many thanks, Angelo, for that update. Angelo Kupola joining us in Johannesburg.